Yeah. Ready to begin. Today's daf is Daf Samach Amud Aleph. We are up to the very bottom of the page, in test on the base. And we said that if the baby recognizes the mother, then the mother has to be the one to nurse this little baby. So the Gemara says, what's shot the baby recognizes the mother? Of what age do we say that the baby starts recognizing the mother? Says the Gemara, we say over here that even if they got divorced, and according to Moses Shein, even if she did not make a vow, if they got divorced, she no longer is obligated to nurse. She can have a wet nurse if she wants to. However, if it's a sakana, no, the baby doesn't really want to eat from anyone else, then you pay her money and you force her to nurse. What's considered the baby recognize the mother? Says the Gemara, ad kama. How long does it have to be before we can say that the baby recognizes the mother? How old does the baby have to be that's been nursing from the mother? Now the baby really recognizes the mother. So the Gemara, Rabbi have a few opinions. Rabbi said, name Rabbi Yemin Barabba, Amra, they will have shloisha chadashim. 3 months. The baby is 3 months old, then we say the baby recognizes its mother. Shmuel Amar Shleishiyem, even just 30 days. Rabbi Yitzchak says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Chamishim Yom. The baby will be 50 days old. Amar of Simi Rabbi, Halacha ke Rabbi Yitzchak she'amar Moshe Rabbi Yechanan. Halacha like Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yechanan, 50 days. Says the Gemara. When it comes to Rabbi Yechanan, we can say they're not really arguing, even though they are. Each one is saying, look, that this is the age that we think that a child is mature enough to know. So the only question is whether it's 50 days or whether it's 3 months, because there are some babies that are more precocious and recognize their mother younger, and other babies are not. And then the argument is the bulk of the babies, which category they fit in. Shmuel says 30 days. Noah says a baby 30 days really can recognize the mother. So where does he come from? Says the Gemara, in fact, Ki Asa Rami Bayechaskel, we already had the Gemara before. Rabbi Yehuda, who says the name of Rav, says the name of Shmuel, and even though our Gemara just says Amar Rabbi Yehuda, what do you call it? Sorry, it's our Gemara just says Shmuel. In other Gemara it says Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Shmuel. And Rabbi Yehuda had a brother called Rami by Yecheskel. And on a few occasions, Rami by Yecheskel says, ignore what my brother says. Even though his brother is one of the most prolific writers in Shas, constantly quoting either Rav or Shmuel, nevertheless came along Rami, the son of Yecheskel, brother of Yehuda, and he said, not listen. Not listen to these rules that my brother Shmuel said. Shmuel said, in fact, the following. As long as the child recognizes the mother, and we just work it out, each one on their own. Nothing to do with 30 days. He doesn't come into Shmuel. Somebody came before Shmuel. A woman came before Shmuel and wanted to know, she was divorced, and she didn't want to nurse her child. She wanted to know whether she had to or not. And we said before that once the baby realizes who the mother is and doesn't want to really nurse from anyone else, we force the mother to nurse the child. So this woman who's divorced went to Shmuel and said, do I have to nurse my child or not? So Shmuel turned around to Rav Dimi, the son of Yosef, and said, Zil Batka, go investigate. Go check her out. See if the baby really, years after its own mother, does this baby recognize its mother? Ozil went. Oisra placed her bedora the she made her own women. Vishakle libra took the child. Went from woman to woman, and each one gave the child and observed the relationship between this baby and the mother. When he brought the child to the real mother, saw that the baby was actually staring right into her mother's eyes. The mother then turned her eyes away. He didn't want the baby to look at her. So he recognized, the writer of Jesus saw that the baby recognized its mother. The taf einecha, he said, lift your eyes. Kum dadi brech. Go ahead, lift up your child. the mother, fine. That's by a baby who can see. Summa, a baby that's blind. How does she know who her mother is? Rashi said, "Berecho b'taima." A baby can smell her mother, and also when she drinks the milk, can taste the mother's milk and taste different. Because each one tastes different, and the baby can recognize that. Even the baby blind can recognize which real mother is. That's what we learned. Yonik tinuk. You can nurse a child till what age? Up to 2 years old, you can nurse a child. Beyond that, a child over 2 years old who's nursing still from his mother, it's like the child's eating a treif. Shouldn't be eating from his mother's womb, from the mother's chest. Rabbi Yeshua says, if the child wants to continue nursing from the mother, even to 4 or 5 years old, they can continue. However, Pidish, once the child, let's say, separated from his mother, and then wants to go back, after the baby's 2 years old, stop for a while, and then we'll soon see what a while means, and then wants to return to nurse from his mother, is kiyenik sheketz. That's when it's considered as if the child is nursing from something which is asset to the child. Let's analyze this. Beyond 2 years old, or beyond 4 or 5 years old, is kiyonik sheketz, as if the child is eating treif. As if to say, once you're older, you're not allowed to nurse from your mother's milk because the milk is treif to you. Now the Gemara asks a question. We know that the milk of a woman is not treif at all. You're allowed to drink the milk of a woman. But I mean, ask a question. I would have thought that milk from a human being is tamei. Bedino, and it makes sense. A living animal can never be tamei. If you touch a living animal, you never become tamei. Yet most animals, their milk is not kosher. For example, a camel. The milk of a camel is treif. It says twice gomel. One to aser the meat of the animal, one to aser its milk. Adam, a person shechmarta b'magoi, a person who can become tamei. A woman is a nido, a person becomes tamei touching something and becomes tamei. And then metami others. Din shetachim lechaber. Surely its milk. So the way a person is stricter than an animal, surely its milk should also be forbidden. You shouldn't have to drink the milk of a woman. The pasuk therefore says the following: you should not eat from an animal that chooses cud, but what do you call it? But it does not have split hooves. Es hagomel, the camel, says the pasuk ki mala gedahu, because this animal chooses cud. What do you mean ki mala gedahu? And so we're learning the word who, it, this animal. We're talking about the camel. I have to say the word who. Just say kimalageda. Who tamei, to tell you that it's restricting the limiting the tumah treif only to this camel. The ain chol of mahalchestein tamei, but the milk of a human being is not tamei. Elatoyer. And we're going to use the word who as well to teach you something else. Who tamei elatoyer. Yoch, I would have thought oitzi is a cholav. I would have thought, okay, blood, I will exclude. I would say, okay, blood, because blood is by certain animal, by certain things, blood is what do you call it? Is not shavabako. I would have thought by for example, milk by cow is permitted, by goat is permitted. And by camel is forbidden. So milk sometimes is permitted even from an animal. So I'll say by human, okay, milk is permitted. When it comes to blood, which is uniform, all animals, you're not allowed to eat the blood of an animal. So therefore, baby blood, even from a human being, also the blood of a human is asur. So tells you who tamei? The ain dam mahalchestein tamei. Blood of a person is not tamei. Now, the blood of a person is never tamei. Again, from the word who. So we're learning the word who, two things. The camel is tamei, but not the milk of a human being. The camel is tamei, but not the blood of a human being is tamei. In other places, it learns out, in terms of Kain, learns out a third thing. The meat of an animal, flesh of an animal is from an animal, basar and achai. Any animal is forbidden. I'll eat meat from a living animal, but the meat, the flesh of a human being is not basar. In other words, you're allowed to eat another person, mahater. Now, what about midrabanan? We'll continue. And we learn that from either learn all three from the word who, or also we use the word zeh. It says achazeh, so zeh is another word that limits it only to a camel and not to a human being. So we use zeh to teach one of those things: meat, blood, or milk. But not everyone agrees you're allowed to eat the flesh of another person. This is what Taisus and others try to bring here from Teres Kainim. Ein Dam Halchestein Tamil to Amar of Shevish said, I feel a misa prisha ein boy. Not only is not awesome matera when it comes to milk of a person or blood of a person, it's not also the Rabbanan. So what's going on over here? And yet you said that a baby once it's over 2 years old or once it's over 5 years old can no longer nurse from the mother, but it's why not? Like kasha, it depends. When it comes to milk, it depends. Had the padish, had the light padish. If the milk is if a woman, let's say, is in a glass, there's no isa to drink it, not even the rabban. Only when separated. But if it's not separated to nurse directly from the mother, the rabbanon, that is forbidden because it doesn't look proper. But v'chilufa b'dam, when it comes to blood, it's exactly the opposite. Blood from, let's say, when you have blood bleeding from your gums, you're allowed to swallow it. But let's say you have blood that, let's say, is that from you. That's on you. You chewed something and some blood came out of your mouth onto a piece of bread. You're not allowed to eat that piece of bread. Once it's separated from you, you have to cut it out. Give it time to look. Down, shall give blood on the bread. You have to scrape it off, and then you can eat it. If it's stuck between your teeth, but let's say your gums, then might tell you just swallow it. And we're not worried at all. We're not worried at all. Okay, so that's the difference between. There's a question that all of the Shainim ask: why are we worried about, Maris Ayin, and what's the reason why blood, once it's on the bread, is forbidden? So Rashi says the reason why it's forbidden once on the bread is because people will think that the bread that you're eating has blood on it. It's not your blood. They'll think it's blood from an animal, which is forbidden. So it's purely a question of marasayim. When it comes to blood outside, external to the person, it's purely a question of marasayim. So then the question is, so then why are you allowed to drink the blood that's inside your mouth? What about marasayim? So the simple answer would be that maris ayin is only the very same activity you can do inside the house, you can do outside your house. And we say, if you remember the days when margarine came out, we said that if you need margarine, it looks just like butter. With meat, you should put the wrapper on the table so everybody can see. So even though you're at home, there's nobody there except yourself. Since outside, it also the rule of maris ayin is I feel also. But over here, blood that initially exited from your gums, it came from your gums. So that's something that can never really be seen by anybody else. Ever in all instances, it's always in your mouth, in its original place. So therefore, there's no maris ayin. It's not called filu b'chad b'chadar. It's not the same thing outside and inside. There is no outside. It started from inside and it's still there. It hasn't left. So then there's no maris ayin anymore. Omamar. But however, Taisus on the bottom of the page comes up with a very big chiddush. He wants to say that when is maris ayin an issue? Only if it's asa from the Torah is maris ayin an issue. But if it's only asa with the Rabbanon, maris ayin is not an issue. And since we just said right now that the entire issue of blood, of human blood, is only with the Rabbanon, the people might think that you're eating animal blood. So it's only the Rabbanon, and by the Rabbanon, there is no such thing as maris ayin. B'chad if you do it discreetly. Says the Gemara, we learned Yeshua 4 or 5 years. But Tanya Yeshua said, even if your bundle is on your shoulder, you can still continue nursing for your mother. And Gemara right now thinks that carrying a bundle on your shoulder, you have to be quite old. So the answer, no. Once you're 5 years old, you're capable already of carrying some wood on your shoulder. Interesting, by that Keder, there's a big argument how old Yitzchak was at the Keder. Now, the Medrash says 37 years old. When we learned 37 years old, and Yitzchak went to Gan Eden for 3 years. So when he came back, he was 40, and that's when he married Rivka. The Even Ezra in Chumash brings an opinion from someone, I can't remember who, that Yitzchak was 5 years old. And Even Ezra rejects that because it says in the pasuk that Yitzchak carried the wood. How can a 5-year-old carry the wood? And they ask him, Even Ezra from the Gemara right here, it says clearly that a 5-year-old can also carry the wood. I guess the Even Ezra was trying to say, of course he can carry some wood, but they were talking about wood enough to make a fire, to make a carbon. There you need quite a substantial amount of wood. And that's that kind of wood 5-year-old couldn't really carry. I mean, that's what it meant. Anyway, our Rebbe says, halacha can Rebbe Shua. The halacha is like Rebbe Shua, even 4 or 5 years old. Taking about a further time, we learned, Rab Marina says, Goyneyach, that if somebody, let's say, is in pain and is correcting out of pain, is yonik cholot b'Shabbos, he can go ahead and nurse milk from medicinal purposes from the milk, let's say, of a goat. He needs milk of a goat even on Shabbos. My time, why do we allow him to do Shabbos? I thought somebody's dying, so why do we do it on Shabbos? That he's just in pain. Because nursing from an animal directly or drinking from the udder of an animal is mefarek kalachayad. What's the malacha? Malacha is mefarek. You're separating something from its source, and if you separate something from its source, it's a tool of dash. Dash is threshing. You're separating the grains from the where it's growing. So this is threshing. Threshing is one of the malachas, and since you're doing it in an abnormal way. Why is that abnormal way? Normally you just put it into a pot. You have a pot that has milk on, you milk it from the udder. Here you're milking directly to your mouth. It's kalachiyad u'makom tzayla goes rabbanon. Since and you're using your mouth and not your hand, and by place of tzar, rabbanon weren't geyser, because right you're talking about tzar. All you have is pain. Others learn that here we're talking about it's not even a malacha in the Torah because dash is only the gedule karka, only thing on the ground. So this is milking. Therefore, only isa the rabbanon, and that's why we're relaxed over here. We relax. We say that you can go ahead and do the shini. If somebody's in pain, we can make a shini of a rabbanon or have a guy do it for you. Not like the way the Rashi seems to be learning isa the raisa, but because you did a shini, so you therefore it reduces it to an isa the rabbanon, and if somebody's in pain, you're allowed to do that. Other Gemaras say that only on Yom Tov you can do that. And some say that these two Gemaras are arguing with each other. And Taisus wants to Rabbein Tam wants to Mechadish at different levels of pain, different grades of pain. The other Gemara is talking about hunger pangs. Hunger pangs, we only permit you to do this on Yom Tov and Shabbos. And here we're talking about pain of because you're sick, you're infirmed. Therefore, we're more relaxed on Shabbos as well. Oh, the basic halacha k'rabanis. And that proves like those are shame that say this Gemara argues because otherwise nobody's arguing. What's mean halacha like who's arguing with him? Tanya, we learned now that we introduced the idea. It would seem kalachayad, so we'll make something else like kalachayad. A pipe. Let's say you drain pipes she'oluba, you store pipes she'oluba kashkasi, and you have all kinds of grass and other things that growing there, sitting there, and it's obstructing the water from flowing down. And it's causing the water to go through your roof. You let us tread on them with your foot discreetly on Shabbos. We're not worried that people might see whatever it is. We're not worried that you're doing anything because you're doing it not the normal way. You're not doing kalachiyad. You're making a shini. My time of Masakin Kalachiyadu, you're not doing the normal way. Welcome say to the Gazar Rabbanon, but the lost Rabbanon weren't geyser. So again, the idea of Kalachiyad, before because of pain, and here because of a hefset of mama may allow you to do is Kalachiyad. Then we said, Peter should be separated from the mother Lacha 24 months. It's after 20 months he goes back. It's like he's eating it's like he's eating from something which is a trade. He shouldn't come back and nurse. The kama, how long does he have to separate before we say he can only come back? Yehuda, the son of Chaviv, said name is Shmuel, 3 days. If he separates for 3 days, it's as if it's completely weaned off. Others say the same thing, but it was not that Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel. Yehuda said it in front of Shmuel. Shmuel didn't object, which means that he agreed. So in fact, it was of Yehuda, but Chaviva's did. That's what we learned. We learned Meinekes Shemes. Let's say Bailam, a woman who was nursing and her husband died within 24 months. And she wants to get remarried. On the other hand, we said before the average child is nursed up to 2 years old. We do not want her to get engaged. And even get engaged, that leads to marriage. Why don't we want to get married? We don't want to get married either. Because the child is in danger. Why? Because ad esim still 24 months. And the reason is that, the reason is simple. We are worried that she'll get married, she'll fall pregnant, she will lose her milk. And if she was married to her husband and she falls pregnant, loses the milk, the husband then will buy milk and substitutes to take care of the child. But over here, this new husband of hers is not interested in the child. It's not his child. He has no obligation to support it. He tells her it's your child. You take care of it. She doesn't have the funds or the means to provide only her natural milk. but because of the new husband, she lost her natural milk or became all sour. And therefore, she shouldn't put herself in that situation and endanger the child's life. Till 24 months. Divrei Rab Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says that it's all right when after 18 months. After 18 months, you're allowed to. Says the Gemara, Yosef says, because that's enough for a child, and afterwards they could sustain themselves with normal food. Yeah, this argument of Rabbi Yehuda Meir is in fact the same argument in Bisham Besil. These are the words of Bishamai, Hein Hein Divrei Besil. What do you mean? A baby requires 24 months of nursing. 18 months of nursing is sufficient. I will be machriya. I will make some kind of I'll make a ruling that goes as follows. I'll allow 3 months. Even if she falls pregnant, the first 3 months, her milk is not really impacted. It's only after 3 months. So the Divya says that a baby needs 24 months. Then 21 months after she became pregnant, after the baby was born, you can already start, because even if she falls pregnant, the first 3 months doesn't impact the milk at all. The one says 8. The one who says, sorry. The one who says 18 months, muteres. The one who says 18 months, she's allowed to get remarried, but after 15 months. Why? The milk does not become sour or disgusting or repugnant, only when she's after 3 months into her pregnancy. Ula says the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Halacha like Rabbi Yehuda that says that after 18 months, not 24 months, 18 months, which really means 15 months. Marukva said, Rab Chanina allowed me, based on what we just said, he allowed what do you call it? Rab Chanina allowed me to marry this woman after 15 months, when her baby was 15 months old, because even if she falls pregnant straight away, it takes 3 months. Tells Gemara a story, a fascinating idea regarding Rabbanim. Arise de Abaya. Abaya had this worker. Also, the Kam made the Abaya, who once came before Abaya. And Amal said Abaya, Ma'ula Ores b'chamisha asa chodesh. Can I get engaged? A child 15 months old. Can I get engaged to a woman who's a child 15 months old? Amalei, so Abaya said for sure. First of all, whenever there's an argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, generally the halacha is always like Rabbi Yehuda, which means that what? And Rabbi Yehuda said 18 months. And then he stepped back 3 months. So 15 should be right. And we said before that this is an identical argument between Beisham and Beisil, halacha Beisil. And furthermore, Ula came along and said halacha Rabbi Yehuda. He came along and he also added on, even though we have a general rule that halacha Rabbi Yehuda, Ula came and stated regarding this particular argument halacha Rabbi Yehuda. 3 reasons why 15 months, why 18 months, and then go back 3. But Marukva said that Li Rab Chanina says, and the 4th thing is Marukva alone came along and told halacha l'maisa that once happened. Chanina allowed me to get married after 50 months. Kosh came the atla others. Here, you only want to get engaged. We're not even getting married when could be full pregnant straight away. We're not getting engaged, and who knows how long it will, the duration will be between your engagement and your marriage. So therefore, of course, you're allowed to. That's what Abaya ruled. He also Kamed Rabbi Yosef. Now he lived near his teacher Rabbi Yosef. So then once he came to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi, and he told him, you had a shy. Let's say this is what I ruled. Amalei, Rabbi said, "Oh, you ruled incorrectly, because Rav and Shmuel, the Amitavayu, Rav and Shmuel, they both said, Tzicha lahamtin esim v'arba chodesh. They ruled you have to wait 24 months." And those 24 months is chutz miyayim shenei does not include the day that they were born. The chutz miyayim shenes arsabay, and that includes the day of engagement. That's be 2 intervening years. The second day of the baby's life and the day before you got engaged. And that's the halacha. In other words, we're going to follow Rab Meir here against all these other opinions. Rohat Basrei Klosa Parsi. Abaye then realized that he paskin wrong. He picked himself up and he chased after this person to tell him, I made a mistake. And this person already was 12 kilometers away, and he chased after him to tell him, whenever it was at night or the following day, that I'm sorry, don't get married. But the others say parsa b'chol. Others say he ran 4 kilometers on the sand, which is much harder to run 4 kilometers on the sand than to run 12 kilometers on gravel. But Adichet couldn't reach him in time. Omar Abai said, now I understand. This din, the rabbi said, that even an obvious law, even this obvious law, you found an egg inside a chicken, whether you're allowed to eat it. And we're not talking about a whole egg. We're talking about an egg that you checked the chicken and you found a complete egg in the chicken. And you're allowed to eat it with milk. And kutach, remember we had a number of times, kutach is that heavy, sour milk with moldy bread. You're allowed to eat that milk. Lailish, which is a rule that everybody knows. Lailisha inish, a person should not say, yes, you're allowed to, b'mokum rabbi. Even though everybody knows, it's universal law, it's something so simple everybody knows. You're not allowed to paskin in the region of your rabbi, even such a law. Not because it looks like it's a chutzpah, because no chutzpah, everybody knows the law anyway. Because very important thing, every rav, when it comes to pasking a shaila, real shaila, you have sayata d'shmaya. You have help from above to make sure you're pasking correctly. But if you're in the vicinity of your rebbe, out of the covet to your rebbe, you should give over the psak, relay the psak to your rebbe, or should consult your rebbe. Even such an obvious thing, because otherwise you lose the sayata d'shmaya, and even someone as great as Abaya made a mistake. The member to say, I knew this law of Rabbi Shmuel that they say the halach is you got to wait 12 months. Nevertheless, I did not have the Sayata D'Shmaya to say it. The Neidah Behuda, when he was trying to be a Rav, they used to test them with fruits, and they would put out a platter of fruits, and they would say to the Rav, okay, go ahead and make brachas, because all kinds of rules, which bracha you make first, eitz versus adama, a fruit that you like versus a fruit that you don't like, a local fruit versus a fruit from Eretz Yisrael, many different details, and this is something halach l'maisa, they want to see how you behave. And they took the test and he failed. So he told them that he said it proves nothing. He says, because the Gemara says, he obviously meant this Gemara here, that a Rav, when he passes, he has Seyata D'Shmaya. Since you haven't made me the Rav yet, and in fact, some of you don't want me to become the Rav, therefore I'm lacking Seyata D'Shmaya. So therefore I'm apt to fail. The moment you hire me as Rav, you'll see that I won't fail. That was Nedvida's argument. Talking about fruits, they did the same test with the Tzemach Tzedek. And with him, they gave a whole fruit and a half a fruit. So they gave a platter of fruits. There were a couple of whole fruits there, a couple of part fruits, and they put a knife there, a plate, and they said, go make a bracha. He took, they gave him a plate with no knife, and just a bowl of fruits. Most of them were whole, some of them were half. He took the half fruit and he made a bracha. And right away they jumped on him and said, you got it wrong, because the din is you're supposed to make a bracha on the whole fruit. It's much more bakavedik, not the half fruit. So the Tzemach Tzedek answered, if you wanted to eat the whole fruit, you would have brought me a knife. Because you didn't bring me a knife, it's obvious you didn't want me to eat the whole fruit, only the half fruits. And every guest is there, al das balabayis. You have to, accommodate the owner of the house, the host. So therefore, I had to eat the half fruit. But that's what they used to do, to see whether you know halacha. But Abaye says, knowing halacha, it's sayat l'shmaya. The Torah's, what's his name? Shnei Zalman Shneisen, who wrote the Torah's Chaim, I forgot already. Unbelievable Talmud Chacham. And he used to go consult, and then he went to Shleim. He used to call Torah's Chesed. Unbelievable Baki B'Shas, so he used to go and consult with Tzemach Tzedek. He used to go there a couple of times a year, and he used to ask him all the questions and argue, whatever. And one time he came to Tzemach Tzedek and told him that he had a shaila, and this is how he passed. There was a question about Guna, a very difficult question. And he gave his whole pilpul why he decided one way or another. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, you forgot a Mishnah. And Torah's Chesed came all pale, a Mishnah, impossible. And in his head, he started going through all the Mishnayos. And he said, no such Mishnah against what I wrote. Tzemach Tzedek says, he honed in on it, told him which chelik, and he told him which Pedic. And he still didn't get it, till he told him which Mishnah in the Pedic. And suddenly he realized he forgot an open Mishnah. His whole pilpul was baseless. And then he said, oh, that's the difference between a Rebbe and a Gon. Sayata D'Shmaya. So this is what Abaye was saying here. He did not have Sayata D'Shmaya, even though you can't get anyone, like Abaye. Abaye is one is one of the, well, we know what Rabbi is. And nevertheless, he made a mistake in the psak. Taking on further. Tarabon, we learned. He gave the son over to a wet nurse. These possible cases. What about, you're telling me now get remarried for 2 years? What about she no longer nursing the child? She gave it to somebody else to nurse. Or gamalta, or she weaned the child off. Or mess, or the child actually died. And the husband, she died 12 months ago because she get remarried. In all these cases, why can't she get married straight away? Yes, she can. Now, Papa Rabun wanted to follow this law and say, what you can get remarried right away. A woman said, 1 second, but did he have a uvda? It once occurred to me, this very story, Rav Nachman clearly forbade me from getting remarried. I had to wait the full 2 years. Says the Gemara, how can it be? But so how can you believe a testimony? We know for a fact that Nachman permitted to members of the family of the chief exarch in Bavel that they can get remarried in these cases. So the Gemara says, no, that's exception. In other words, in the case where she gave it to somebody else, the reason why you cannot get married, what happens to the nurse, that wet nurse decides to have her own baby and she stops nursing on your behalf? What do you do then? So therefore, but in the case of the Reish Galusa, there's no woman that would have the courage. If she was hired on a 2-year contract, no woman would have the courage to quit because they were all petrified from this. They were all very authoritarian, and everyone was petrified from them. But they had the full brunt of the law behind them. The government recognized the house of David, and they had the full brunt of the law. The Eden, while they lived in Babel, even though initially it was terrible and there was an exile on Tisha B'Av, once they were settled in, they were treated very nicely. They became very affluent, and none of them wanted to return to Israel. Ezra was only able to get 70 years later 41,000 Eden to return. The vast majority wanted to remain behind. They were very well established, and so on. And the Reish Galusa had authority from the government. They could levy taxes, and they had the police and everything else. So no one had the courage to turn down or breach a contract that they had. Reish Galusa. So Nachman, if a rule, it's all right. But anywhere else, if you're a wet nurse, how do you know the wet nurse won't change your mind? So you can't rely on that, and that's why you have to wait full 2 years in case you're needed to nurse a child. The Papa says, what do you have to have the case of this this safta to tell you that you cannot rely on a brisa? But you should have known yourself from another brisa. The Tanya, we learned another case where we made a law that a woman who was married and her husband died, you have to wait 3 months before she marries again. We had this already in Yivamis because we want to be able to discern or determine this child that you will have. Whose child is it? Let's say it's born 7 months after she remarries, but it's 9 months from the first husband. Now it's questionable. First husband, second husband, first was a kohen, second wasn't. So many questions. The ash of the first or the second. So we say there has to be hiatus of 3 months in between. So this way we can determine whose child it is. What about in the situation where it's impossible that it's the first husband's child? You still have to wait the 3 months. And the Braisa clearly says, regardless, once you make a rule, it's universal. You're not going to make exceptions here, there. So just like in 3 months, in the case of 3 months, you make no exceptions. So too, in the case of 2 years, we make no exceptions. You always have to wait the full 2 years. What's the story there? Let's say she left her husband's house and she remained in her parents' house for the full 3 months before he died. She had a big fight with her husband. Her husband was incarcerated. There was no way that she could have had a child with her first husband. Or let's say husband traveled overseas. Or was too old, incapable of procreating, or infirm. Let's say she was barren, or she was old, beyond the years of being capable of children, or endless, a barren woman who could never have a child. Or Ktano, somebody too young to have a child, or Mapelas, let's say she miscarried right after her husband died, and then her husband's dead already, so there's no way that she could have been impregnated by her first husband. Or She'ena Ruya Leila. This is the proof they use against Rashi, who says that when you say the child, you shouldn't, the child can become a sandal, shouldn't have relations right away with another man because the child, she's pregnant, the child might become a sandal, and Rashi says she might then, before pregnant with the second child, who will scorch the first child. It says clearly here that once you have a child inside you, you can't have a second child. Because once you maple one child, you don't say, oh, maybe there's another child inside a womb. You don't say that. What do you call it? And or for whatever reason, not capable of having a child. For example, she had hysterectomy. Can't have a child. Cool on Tziglam Tziglam. Do you remember? It holds in all these cases make no difference. Xeda, it's universal. Rabbi says there are exceptions, and therefore in all these cases, why not? We always follow Rabbi when it comes to his gezeris. Whenever a mayor is machmir, because he's making a gezerah, even though in logic you can tell there's a difference between the two. What do you call it? Because once you make gezerah, you don't make exceptions. Whenever you make gezerah, generally you try to make it universal for everybody. You make no difference between one woman and another woman. All sets of circumstances, the rules are basically the same. You have to wait the full 3 months. So same thing by menekes, even though the child died, whatever it is, there's no reason why not. We never let us wait the full 2 years in all cases. They said the Papa and Hun said Lab Adaitin. No, we weren't aware of it. They weren't aware. Yet the Gemara concludes the halach is Meis Mutter. The halach is if the child dies, it is permitted. If the child malata you weaned off, also is forbidden. If the child dies, there's no way that there's a problem of changing your mind or anything else. And gemalta also. So the Shayim have a hard time. He just said the halacha is exedus, make no difference. Now suddenly you're coming along and making exceptions. If the child is dead, there's no reason why we should not allow her to get married. If the child weaned off, we're worried that the wetness will stop the nursing, so you'll have to take her back. Ma'abar Rashi wants to go further. He wants to say that even the child died, it's also forbidden. And why should it be forbidden? Another reason altogether. Because we're scared if you're going to make a law that says if the child is dead, she can get remarried. What happens if she's madly in love? She's very, very lonely. She's going to do something to make sure the child dies so that she can get married. Dilma Kotbeleva Osla. She might kill her own child or cause his death, or means it in order to get married. There was a story. That happened. The mother strangled her own child. So that no proof whatsoever. That woman obviously was not in her right mind. We cannot imagine. It's definitely uncommon that a mother should strangle her own child, even because she's lonely to get married, because she would never ever take her own child's life. So, so what exactly does it mean? The halacha is. The halacha is, what's the real reason then why we make no difference between when you weaned it off or didn't wean it off? It goes as follows. So Taisa explains. If we say that if you wean the child off, you can get remarried, then we're scared that the mother is going to try to wean the child off, even though the child's not ready, in order for her to get married. And that's our concern. And this gives an incentive for them to do the wrong thing. But when it comes to dying, we don't believe that the wrong thing would be for the mother to make sure the child dies of starvation or whatever. And we don't believe that the average woman would ever do that to her child. And therefore, we're not worried. Tell you what we learned. Let's say a woman was hired to be a wet nurse and she gets paid for it, she gets a salary, then she has no right, she has no right to nurse her own child with it, because the child is going to steal some of the milk that she has to offer to the child that she was hired to be a wet nurse for. But not to do a favor to a friend. The milk that you have is dedicated for that child that you're being paid for. Paska kima oichelas haba. Let's say that this person gives her a little money that she should eat properly, so that she can have plenty of milk. But that won't be enough food. She has to then buy more food in order to have an abundant supply of milk to keep on nursing this baby. She should not eat food which is actually considered bad for milk, for milking a child. She should not eat such food, because now that you're on a contract, you have to make sure that you're in the best possible tip-top condition. So you're not allowed to then you're not allowed to eat food which will harmful to milk, to the mountain milk, or turn the milk sour. Says the Gemara, first let's understand. If you tell me her own son, which she has a duty of care to take care of, you tell me that since she's contracted out, she's not allowed to, then you have to tell me the friend's son that she should not nurse? Of course not. It's not even your obligation. Why would you think you're allowed to? You're contracted out to somebody else. So I would have thought, but no, her own son, the Chayis Lai, her own son, she's Rachmanis, Mamslatfei. She will therefore give a lot of milk to her own son, and then it'll impact on the milk that you have left over in the reserve for the other one. Avol ben Chavata, but the son of your friend, Ilav the Havila, Moiser, if you would, but for your friend, if you would not have extra Lavi Mamtzile. In other words, for your friend, you'd only give her a little bit milk sparingly. You're not going to go ahead especially give her too much milk, only a friend a favor. So therefore, you're going to make sure you have enough milk for for the contract you have, and this is only any excess milk, so it shouldn't be a problem. Mashallah, that no, you have no right. Then we said, Pasakim, if the guy gave you, the one who contracted you gave a little bit of food, but you have to eat more than that. It's not enough because you need an abundant supply of milk. Who pays for the extra food? She pays it herself. Because obviously, when you took the salary, you included that in your costs, not just your time and the pain that you have and so on and so forth. You also took into account the amount of excess food that you need. So then you shouldn't eat food that's harmful to your milk. What kind of food are we talking about? Rav Kana said, you shouldn't eat kshus or hops. The chazis, you shouldn't eat certain kinds of grass. The dogim tanim, a small little fish like sardines, whatever it is, you shouldn't eat. And adama, nor should you eat earth. I'm not exactly sure what he means. You shouldn't eat earth. Why people would eat earth? Maybe some kind of I don't know, some kind of like a vitamin or something. I don't know what it is. Some kind of health superfood, earth. But whatever it is, you're not allowed to eat it because it has a negative impact on the milk that you have. Omar Abaye says, I feel the craw, even Gert, it's the Gert family, and the chavusha, and even what do you call it? These little, these quince apples. And our Papa says, I feel craw the kufr. Our Papa says, and even craw and kufr. Rashi says craw is the things that grow around a palm tree, and kufra is dates that are not yet ready. Rav Ashi says, afilu kamcha, that you also should not eat kamcha v'harsana. You shouldn't eat kamcha and harsana. And what exactly is kamcha? I'm not exactly 100% sure. Harsana is in fish that we always fry there in flour. Sorry, kamcha is kutach. Kamcha is that milk that we said before, that is, that milk with a moldy bread, sour milk and moldy bread, and that's kamcha. And nor should you eat the little fish that are fried in flour and in the fats of the fish. All of these foods have a negative impact on woman's milk. Talking about it further, some of these things actually interrupt the milk flow, and some of these allow the milk to flow, but it makes the milk repugnant. Then it says the Mishnah Misham Shabbat. Then it's talking about these things, talking about things which are bad omens for the milk. We're also not talking about things about bad omen for having children where you have your relations. The Misham Shabbat, if you have relations right next to a mill, you have children who are epileptic. Not sure exactly the link between the two. If you have relations on the ground, you'll have these kids with very long necks. Remember those countries in Africa, we have these women with these very long necks, and that's considered a mum. The darka al rama de chamra, if somebody steps on the urine of a donkey or on the dung of a donkey, havale bnei gardina, you'll have children who grow bald early. The ochla chardla, if you eat lots of mustard while you're pregnant, talking about while you're pregnant, if she walks over these things. If you eat lots of mustard while you're pregnant, havi b'lei b'nei, you will have children zalzuluni that are constantly hungry. The ochla tichli, if you eat cress, havi b'nei dulfi, you'll have children with very watery eyes, constantly flowing to their eyes. The ochla munini, if you eat small little fish, havi b'nei mitzitze eina, you'll have children whose eyes constantly are blinking. The ochla, if you eat gargush, if you eat earth, you'll have ugly children. The shasya shikr, if you drink alcohol or beer while you're pregnant, you'll have dark children. But the ochla bisra, the shasya chamra, if you eat meat and you drink wine while you're pregnant, you'll have very healthy children. The ochla beya, if you eat the eggs, the havale, then you will have children b'nei einani, children with big eyes. And the ochla kivi, if you eat large fish, havale b'nei chinna, you will have children who will have charm and grace. The ochla karpasa, if you eat karpasa afya, according to many, is the celery. This is the big argument we have when it comes to, others say parsley, the big argument we have when it comes to, what do you call it? Karpas by the Seder, what exactly karpas is, celery, parsley, or other things. Havilo, you'll have children that b'nei zivisti. You'll have children that their faces will shine. The ochla kuzbarta, if you eat coriander, havile b'nei bisrani, you'll have fat kids. The ochel esrege. If you will eat esregim havle b'nei reichanim, you'll have children that have beautiful fragrance. In fact, Barte de Shava Malka, the daughter of Shava Malka, achla ba'ima esrege, while the mother was pregnant, she used to constantly eat esregim. So this girl grew up, had a wonderful smell, and have a maskul kamei avua b'reish reichanim. Whenever they wanted to have a good smell, they would bring her before her father, the king. So it would bring a beautiful fragrance into the room. Okay, we'll stop over here.